So what's going on, guys? I took you guys' comments from my last, the contest that I had, and basically, adding some things in and doing more events on Strikeforce and other popular events that's going on. So this, I'm doing my predictions on the Fedor versus Henderson fight coming up on the 30th. So, let's first start off with the fight of Scott Smith versus Tariq Saffiedine. This fight is an interesting fight, only because of the styles that both of these fighters, have. Scott Smith has the, punching bag mentality versus I'm going to hit you with the one hit. I mean, those are the two contrasts of his fighting game. He'll take a bunch of a horrible beating just to get that one good punch. And it's not necessarily good for your career as far as longevity goes, because, your brains would be, pudding after a while. But he seems to not care about that, and all he cares about is to put on an entertaining show for the individuals watching that event. And then you have Saffiedine, which is, a guy who's really doing good and an up-and-coming guy. He's a young guy, but he really doesn't have too much power in his hands. He's more of just a well-rounded fighter. So where do I see this fight going? Well, the biggest difference for me is the age factor for both of these guys. I think Scott Smith is 36, I believe, or 34. I'm sorry, 32. He's 32. Versus Saffiedine, which is a 24-year-old. And not only that, but he's up and coming. Scott Smith, I think he's lost his last two fights by knockout. So I really just see Saffiedine going in there and winning by decision by keeping Scott Smith on his back and holding him there and just pretty much controlling the fight. I don't think he's going to give Scott Smith his third knockout loss, but I do feel that he's going to control Scott Smith and keep him at bay and try to tire him out and wrestle him and grapple him. And that's probably his best bet overall. So I have Saffiedine winning this fight by unanimous decision. The next fight that we have is Paul Daley versus Woodley. What impressed me with Woodley was, I remember watching Woodley from, from his challenger events, and just watching him rise up into this main card status, on a big card. And I remember watching this guy and being so impressed with him having his muscular structure and not being a striker, and being more of a wrestler / grappler, but more of a grappler than a wrestler. He uses his wrestling to take you down, but he doesn't control you on the ground. He uses more of a grappling technique, which impressed me with him, because I would look at him and be like, wow, I think this guy is going to probably be a striker if I just would have looked at him. And that really impressed me. And he's been going on a tear, ever since I've seen him. He's just been winning fights after fight after fight. And then on the other hand, you have Paul Daley. Paul Daley, we know he just lost his last match against Nick Diaz, got outstruck. He almost won that fight. It's just that Nick Diaz recovered, and it just happened. He got outstruck. But the biggest thing with Daley is that everyone, and it's apparent, his biggest weakness is his takedown defense and not being able to do great off of his back and just getting dominated by wrestlers. And we saw that even before the Nick Diaz fight, when he was in the UFC going against Koscheck. And Koscheck just controlled him and dominated him on the ground. Just at every facet, just pounding away with him and, and frustrating him and talking, shit in his ear and all this other stuff while he's controlling him on the ground like a little baby. And that could be frustrating, and for, Paul Daley's sake, I hope that he's got his defense, his takedown defense, and his ground game up. I doubt it, because his main focus is always, I'm going to be a striker, I'm going to be a striker, I'm going to be a striker. I'm going to knock a guy out. He doesn't want to stand up with me, but he has to forget this isn't boxing, this is MMA. So in this match, where do you see this match going? Well, this match is going to Woodley. Woodley is going to basically go in there and do what he always does: set up strikes for takedowns to on the ground, grappling you and wrestling you, which is Paul Daley's weakness. So this fight is perfect for Woodley, because he's just going to control Daley all day on the ground. And all Daley has is the hopefully back away and angle and throw a punch and hopefully catch him. Do I see that happening? No, because Woodley is a very explosive wrestler and grappler. He explodes very fast. He's a fast-moving guy. The speed is there. It may not be there when it comes to striking, but it's there when it comes to taking an individual down, which Woodley probably isn't. Daley would not be. He wouldn't be. He's going to expect it, but once you're in a cage, he won't expect it. If you understand what I'm saying. So I have Woodley winning this match by decision. He's just gonna, normal. If anything, if he wins if he wins by striking, it'd be ground and pound. But I'm sorry. If he wins by on the ground, it would be by submission. I doubt that he'll go for a ground and pound. But I do see Woodley winning this match by decision. Okay, so then we have the next fight, which is Robbie Lawler versus Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy is a great all-around fighter. His grappling skills are great. His striking ability is there. It's not the best, but it's there. His wrestling ability and grappling ability are awesome. They really are. He's just an all-around great fighter. You've heard these stories about guys not really wanting to fight him and guys pulling out of fights. I think his last loss he's had is against Jacare. And then you have Robbie Lawler, which I think his last loss was against Jacare also. Robbie Lawler, who is he's another haymaker, type of guy. He's going for the strikes. He's trying to catch you with that right and make it in the night right then and there. And he's done it multiple of times. But once again, his biggest weakness is being on his back. He just has a very, very hard time getting back up once someone puts him on his back. And it's sad to say, but these guys with these power punches, other than guys like Henderson and whatnot, who actually have a wrestling pedigree behind them, they just have a hard time getting off of their back. And Robbie Lawler's is one of those guys, and he's going to get controlled on the ground by Kennedy. Kennedy's going to take him down easily, corner him against the cage, throw punches, try to get submissions, and I see Kennedy winning this fight by submission. He's going to submit him in the second round. Just control him and submit him, and Tim Kennedy can do that all day long if you let him get you to the ground and corner you and smother you. And that's what Robbie Lawler has no defense against. He's just looking for that, I'm going to throw the hardest blow I can and I'm going to catch you and knock you out. And that's not going to work with Tim Kennedy. And that's, It's my prediction. It's just not going to work against Kennedy. So Kennedy wins this one by submission. Second round. Okay. Then we have Miesha Tate versus Marlos Konan. I like, you know, women's MMA is, you know, a lot of people don't like to watch it. You know, some people are turned off by it. But I really do enjoy watching it, even though there's one pinnacle person at the top that really doesn't have any competition. It's not really a deep enough. It's not really deep. It's really the same players being recycled. I really don't see anyone new that's coming. It's pretty much the same individuals being swapped out in the women's division, you know. But, you know, Miesha Tate, you know, she has... her striking isn't that good. She has a good, you know, submission, wrestling. You know, that's really her forte. And she could do that. You know, she could really take Konan down and really try to control her with her wrestling and try to eke out a decision. And that's very possible in this situation with Tate. But the thing is Konan is very, 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 very excellent off of working off of her back. In her last fight, you saw that she was really kind of getting beat and controlled in her last fight, and then all of a sudden she controlled her opponent and caught her in a triangle, and that was the end of the fight. And that's the same similar situation that I see that's going to happen with Tate. Tate is going to be pretty much controlling the fight and winning, and then she's going to slip up and get caught with a submission that Konan can. That Konan, I don't know what submission it is because, you know, I'm not a fortune teller, but either way, she's gonna catch her in some type of submission that's going to be the end of the night for Tate. And if Tate doesn't take her down, which would be a horrible decision, Konan is going to outstrike her easily. Because Konan is just a better striker than Tate. That's just the reality of it. So Tate is going to take Konan down, but the bad part about it is Konan is she's just excellent on her back. Maybe she may be able to catch her in another position that's not on her back, you know, and maybe side control or catch her back and try to choke her out. But in my prediction, I'm going to have Konan win this fight by submission. Fourth round. Okay, so now we have the big one. Fedor versus Henderson. You know, Fedor is coming off of his 2 losses against Silva and versus the other guy. I'm sorry, I'm a loss of words right now. I can't remember his name. But he's just coming off of 2 losses. One was a submission and one was a TKO. He got ground and pounded. By going against these guys, not necessarily Verdum. There it is, Verdum. Not necessarily Verdum, but against guys like Silva who are way, way bigger than him. And it just shows when you're going against these guys that are huge and you're coming in at the lower end of the heavyweight division and you're going against guys who strike harder than you and are excellent grapplers, and you know, and these guys are no chumps, and you're going against these guys at the lower end of the heavyweight division. These guys will control you and they hit harder. That's just what it comes down to. And everyone knows that Fedor can hit hard. He can. But at a certain point, when you're going against professional athletes, you have to take every advantage that you possibly can. And weight is a big advantage. No matter what anyone says, weight is a huge advantage when you get to that professional level. You know, and that's what he needs to think about. In my opinion, I think he should drop down to light heavyweight and fight those guys. But for some odd reason, Fedor doesn't want to do that. But then you have Dan Henderson, who just won his last fight against Babalu and knocked him out, and against he just he just won his last fight in a great fashion by knocking out Calavante or something like that. I forgot the guy's name, but he knocked out that guy and won the light heavyweight championship. So I would have thought that would have been a great fight for both of these guys. Fedor would have been dropping down and still trying to be and being the bigger guy. And then he could have, if he would have won, he would have got the championship belt. You know, I thought that would be a great match for Fedor, but he thinks otherwise, and his management does too. But then you have Dan Henderson, which is, you know, Dan Henderson, he's had some bumps in the road, but ever since, you know, getting into Strikeforce, he's been on a streak. Now, I don't know if that's because jumping from, you know, everyone knows that jumping from UFC, jumping down to Strikeforce, you know, the skill level is totally different, and some of these fighters can get used to that skill level, and Dan Henderson is no exemption of that. He's going against guys that he definitely can beat in Strikeforce, but he can't move up to UFC because a lot of those guys he couldn't even compete with. But anyway, back to this fight. Dan Henderson, I have winning this fight, and the reason why I have Dan Henderson winning this fight is because I just think that mentally Fedor isn't really there. And I think mentally Dan Henderson is. He's coming off of 2 wins, just winning a championship belt. He's getting paid great. You know, everything is just going right for Dan Henderson. And with his wrestling background and his, you know, and his hard-hitting punches and his great defense for the takedowns, I just don't see Fedor winning this fight off of coming off of his 2 losses. Fedor hits hard, but he starts to gas really heavy. And Dan Henderson, I believe, has better cardio than Fedor. You just really start to see the wear and tear on Fedor. And I just believe Dan Henderson is going to pressure him, you know, be ready for that pressure, and he's gonna stalk Fedor to a ground and pound. I don't think he wants to stand up with Fedor because, you know, Fedor does those leaping punches and all this other stuff, and Dan Henderson isn't that type of fighter where he wants to really deal with that. What he wants to do is really get Fedor on the ground and pound him. So I have Dan Henderson winning that fight by TKO in the 3rd round. So if you guys like my review, my prediction, please don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment. So I'll see you guys later on my review of Dan Henderson and Fedor. Peace.